Tiny living isn't broken, but the way it's sold to people is. Everybody always talks about the reasons why you should do it, but barely anyone talks about why you shouldn't do it. So today I'm giving you my perspective on why tiny living might not be worth it in 2026, and why, for some people, it might not be the solution they hoped for. In a traditional house, life happens in one room while work happens in another. Which means at the end of the day, you can just forget about your project and pick up where you left off tomorrow. What a tiny house does is it basically removes that buffer that can separate project and privacy. And that means when something breaks, your entire house is affected. So when you're renovating the kitchen, you're also renovating the dining area, lounge, and also the bedroom. En jy weet wat dit beteken, hè? If you have an electrician or some maintenance guy come over into your house, there's no hiding from them because your privacy is basically non-existent. And this is something we've actually experienced recently. So what happened was my wife was lying on the bed breastfeeding our baby. And then the electrician just randomly popped in on us. And because it's basically just one room, she had to awkwardly scurry out of the house holding our baby and wait outside here on the deck for the electrician to finish. So ask yourself this question. Are you okay with potentially living in an ongoing construction site? Or with having electricians and plumbers all up in your business? There's also something else that I don't feel like a lot of people talk about, and this has become a major flaw in the tiny house living movement, even if it is one of the main reasons people want to do tiny house living in the first place. So I would say the main reason people wanted to do tiny living is to try and live a simpler life and not own as much stuff. So that essentially means that it basically shares all of its values with the minimalism movement. However, where we are today, minimalism has actually become a direct feeder for consumerism. Let me explain. So with the minimalism movement, people started feeling this buyer's guilt. The whole idea of owning a lot of stuff was bad. So what basically happened is somebody had 5 pairs of jeans and 5 pairs of shoes. They said, I only need 1 pair of jeans and 1 pair of shoes, got rid of the rest, and then 5 years down the line, eventually the clothes that they kept would be worn out, so they would just have to buy new clothes again. And then this endless cycle just keeps happening. Minimalism by itself isn't the answer. Reducing the amount of stuff that you have isn't going to make you happier. I think it should rather be about putting the emphasis on owning things that make you happy and make your life more fulfilling. So ask yourself this question: do you want to do tiny living just because you think owning less is going to make you more happy? Another thing that's inevitably going to happen to you when you live in a smaller space, and that thing is how quickly the space that you live in will become cluttered because it is so much smaller. In a bigger space, it's a lot more difficult for an area to feel cluttered. There has to be a lot more stuff in. But the smaller the space is, you don't need that much stuff for it to feel cluttered. So if you have a lot of dishes piling up, for example, that can start to affect the rest of the house basically. So there's nog altyd die weird trade-off where you either just accept that you're going to live in clutter, or that you go through the extra effort to make sure that you put everything away and that everything is in its place. And living in a cluttered space is definitely going to affect your mental health. So ask yourself this: are you a very organized person? And if you're not a very organized person, to what extent will you be okay with living in a very cluttered environment? There is, of course, another very real aspect of tiny house living that I think a lot of people overlook. I know I didn't do my research into it before we moved into our tiny house, and that is the legislation and bylaws that cover tiny house dwellings, as well as insurance. Different areas are going to have different bylaws, and sorting through all of those weeds to try and figure out what's legal and what's not can be very confusing. So with regards to those bylaws, some municipalities will have certain bylaws that restrict you to a minimum amount of square meters, and in South Africa there's a National Building Act. For a structure to be considered livable as a permanent dwelling, it has to be at least 30 square meters. And then we're not even talking about if your house is on wheels or not. And now to add to that confusion, some insurance providers won't even insure your house if it's under 30 square meters. I got interested and decided to ask our insurance what we would have to do to be able to insure the caravan that we live in. In a polite way, they basically told me that it's not a permanent residence, and even though I can live in it legally, I wouldn't be able to get house insurance on it because it's not a permanent structure. And so that, funnily enough, means that we would have to get caravan insurance. And to get caravan insurance, not only does our caravan need to be roadworthy, it also has to have an up-to-date license disc. So in terms of amounts that you need to pay, all of these things can add up really quickly. So before you even consider tiny living, ask yourself and do some research which municipalities are okay with tiny living, and then if you found them, are those municipalities actually in areas that you want to live in? So tiny living has become very popular on social media, and it seems like a lot of people are doing it, and that's actually created one of the biggest problems that actually goes against what I think should be one of the core values of tiny living, and that's affordability. I think it would be safe to assume that buying a smaller space would mean that it would be cheaper. And that in a sense is obviously true, and I don't know if it was always like this, but in reality you're not buying cheaper square meters, you're just buying less square meters. So if you want your ideal tiny house, you basically have two options. You can either build it yourself or have somebody build it for you. So with the latter, you actually have quite a few different companies that'll build you different sized tiny houses for different prices. But this is where the kicker comes in, because with tiny house living becoming so popular on Pinterest, I think a lot of these prices have become artificially inflated. And for example, some of these companies are offering for a 15 square meter unit that they could build for you, if you pay up front, it'll cost you about 380,000 Rand. But not everybody's going to have that option to pay up front, so if you finance it through them, with their advertised financing option for about 10 years, you'll pay about 834,000 Rand. Which means for a 15 square meter unit, you're going to pay 55,000 Rand per square meter. That's ridiculous. And then there's other people that decide to do tiny living and stationary caravans like we did. But even then, unless you get really lucky with the price of the caravan, your price per square meter is generally going to be around about 11,000 Rand. Which is crazy. Now let's say you wanted to build a traditional brick and mortar house of about 50 square meters in South Africa. The prices will obviously differ from province to province, but you could pay as little as 6,300 Rand per square meter to have somebody build you your own house. Now of course you could obviously try and build the house yourself, but that opens up a whole different can of worms, like skill issues, timing requirements, other legislative issues. Don't get me wrong, it's definitely doable. The question is, are you willing to do it? So the final question I need you to ask yourself is, if you're going to build a tiny house, how the hell are you going to finance it? And if you can get a bigger house for cheaper, is it even worth it? So the reason for this video is not to scare you off, but it's rather to reframe the way you look at tiny living. Because we genuinely enjoy our lives. But the catch is, what I think we enjoy more is the simple life that we've created for ourselves, and tiny living is just a lens that we can experience that through. It gave us the opportunity for this life. So the most important thing that I want you to take away from this video is that tiny living by itself is not the answer. It's not about buying a new camera to get a better picture of the world. It's more about changing the lens to get a different perspective. So ask yourself those questions, and maybe, just maybe, tiny living will be for you.